Imagine holding 10 crisp $100 bills in your hand. You are 13 years old. The world around you is loud, distracting, and obsessed with instant gratification. For most teenagers, that $1,000 represents a new gaming console, a wardrobe update, or a summer of fast food with friends. It represents consumption. But for a boy named Alex, that money didn't represent what he could buy. It represented what he could build. This is not a story about a viral TikTok trend that fizzled out in a month. It is not about a wealthy kid inheriting a family business or getting a massive safety net from his parents. This is a story about the raw, unfiltered psychology of value creation. It is about how a middle school student looked at the retail market and saw cracks that seasoned CEOs completely missed. While his classmates were memorizing history dates, Alex was decoding human behavior. He was analyzing why we buy, when we buy, and what makes us loyal to a brand. He took that single $1,000 investment and compounded it. He didn't just flip sneakers or sell lemonade. He built a retail infrastructure that eventually challenged local competitors 5 times his size. Most people believe that to build an empire, you need an MBA, decades of experience, and millions in venture capital. They tell you to wait until you are ready. They tell you that you are too young, too inexperienced, or too broke. But money psychology tells us a different truth. Wealth isn't generated by your age or your credentials. It is generated by your ability to spot leverage where others see risk. In the next few minutes, we are going to deconstruct Alex's journey. We are going to break down the exact psychological triggers he used to turn pocket change into a powerhouse. You are going to learn how constraint breeds creativity. You will see how a lack of resources actually became his greatest competitive advantage. And by the end of this video, you will realize that the only thing standing between you and your own empire isn't capital. It is the narrative you tell yourself about what is possible. Let's step into the mind of a teenage tycoon. The year was 2014. The location was a cramped bedroom in the suburbs of Chicago, cluttered with textbooks and unfinished homework. There were no investors in suits sitting around a mahogany table. There was just Alex, a laptop with a sticky trackpad, and a stack of cash he had been hoarding for 2 years. That $1,000 didn't come from a trust fund. It came from mowing lawns, shoveling snow, and saving every birthday check since he was 11. To a child, that money feels like a fortune. To the retail world, it is a rounding error. Most people starting with this amount would try to spread it thin. They would buy a little bit of everything to reduce risk, hoping something sticks. But Alex understood a fundamental rule of behavioral finance before he even knew the term existed: focus amplifies value. He didn't want to sell everything to everyone. He noticed something specific happening in the hallways of his middle school. Kids weren't competing over who had the most expensive clothes. They were competing over who had the things nobody else could find. Scarcity was the currency of his generation. Big box stores were flooding the market with mass-produced, generic styles. They were betting on volume. Alex decided to bet on exclusivity. He spent weeks researching supply chains, not for new products, but for dead stock. He was looking for items that major retailers had discarded or overlooked: vintage sports gear, limited edition caps, specific colorways that were out of season. The market viewed these items as liabilities. Alex viewed them as assets waiting for a narrative. This is where the first major psychological hurdle appeared: loss aversion. Staring at the checkout button on a wholesale liquidation site, Alex froze. He was about to spend 80% of his entire net worth on a box of inventory he hadn't even seen in person. Psychologically, the pain of potentially losing that hard-earned money was twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining a profit. This is the exact moment where 99% of would-be entrepreneurs stop. The fear of the unknown paralyzes the decision-making center of the brain, the amygdala. We are biologically wired to protect what we have, rather than risk it for what we could become. But Alex clicked buy. He didn't do it because he was reckless. He did it because he realized that keeping the money in a shoebox guaranteed zero growth. Inflation would slowly eat it alive. The real risk wasn't losing the money. The real risk was inaction. 3 days later, 4 massive, battered cardboard boxes arrived at his parents' doorstep. His mother asked, "What have you done?" His father shook his head, seeing a cluttered garage and a wasted savings account. They saw junk. Alex saw the foundation of an empire. He dragged the boxes into the garage, cleared off a dusty ping-pong table, and set up his first headquarters. He didn't have a storefront. He didn't have employees. He had a smartphone camera, a desk lamp for lighting, and a vision. He wasn't just going to sell clothes. He was going to sell the feeling of being an insider. And that is a product that never goes out of style. The garage became a laboratory of perception. Alex quickly realized that the product itself is only 20% of the value equation. The other 80% is the story you wrap around it. He took that pile of discounted, out of style clothing and started treating it like museum artifacts. He ironed every seam until it was razor sharp. He used his dad's ladder to get high angles, using shadows to create mood and mystery. He wasn't selling a used Chicago Bulls jacket. He was selling 1990s nostalgia, grit, and the golden era of basketball. This is the psychological principle of framing. The exact same information, or in this case, the exact same product, can be perceived as trash or treasure depending entirely on how it is presented. If he had dumped the clothes in a pile and labeled them cheap used clothes, he would have attracted bargain hunters. Bargain hunters haggle. They drive margins down. By framing them as curated vintage essentials, he attracted collectors. Collectors don't haggle, they compete. He launched his page on Instagram, back when the algorithm was still kind to newcomers. He didn't just post photos, he created drops. He announced that the store would only open at 6 p.m. on Fridays. This utilized the scarcity principle and fear of missing out. When you make something available 24/7, customers procrastinate. They think, I'll buy it later. Later usually means never. But when you tell a teenager they have a 1-hour window to buy a one-of-a-kind item, you bypass their logical brain. You trigger urgency. The first Friday, he sat in front of his laptop, refreshing the page. Silence. 10 minutes passed. No notifications. Doubt started to creep in. Had he miscalculated? Then, a single notification pinged. A sale. Then another. Then 3 in a row. By 7 p.m., he had sold out of his initial Tira stock. He had turned his $1,000 inventory into $2,200 in revenue in 1 week. Most 13-year-olds would have taken that profit and run to the mall. This is where the trap of lifestyle creep destroys most potential empires before they start. As soon as income rises, spending rises to match it. You feel rich, so you act rich, and suddenly you are back to zero. Alex did the opposite. He didn't buy a soda. He didn't buy a video game. He took the entire $2,200 and poured it right back into the business. He bought better lighting. He bought larger lots of inventory from a closing warehouse in Ohio. He bought rigid shipping boxes to improve the unboxing experience. This is the power of compounding, not just in interest, but in effort and capital. By the time he was 14, the garage was no longer enough. His parents were tripping over boxes in the hallway. The neighbors were complaining about the delivery trucks showing up every other day. Alex had hit a scaling wall. He couldn't pack boxes, source products, take photos, and handle customer service alone anymore. He had to hire help. But who works for a 14-year-old? He hired his friends, paying them in pizza and a slightly above minimum wage cash rate. But this introduced a new psychological dynamic, authority bias. His friends saw him as a peer, not a boss. Quality control started to slip. Wrong sizes were shipped. Packages were taped carelessly. Alex learned a brutal lesson in leadership. You cannot be a friend and a manager simultaneously. He had to set standards. He created a checklist. If a package didn't meet the gold standard, it didn't leave the house. He realized that his brand wasn't the clothes. It was the trust his customers had in him. One bad review could dismantle months of hard work. The halo effect was working in his favor. People assumed because the photos were high quality, the service would be too. He had to work twice as hard to ensure the reality matched the perception. By his 15th birthday, the business wasn't just a side hustle. It was generating more monthly revenue than his parents' combined salaries. But as the numbers grew, so did the target on his back. Competitors started popping up, copying his aesthetic, his captions, and even his sourcing methods. The blue ocean he was swimming in was turning red. He needed to pivot, or he would be swallowed by the very market he helped create. Alex realized that fighting a price war is a race to the bottom. If he lowered his prices to beat the copycats, he would destroy his margins and devalue his brand. He had to change the game entirely. He stopped looking at his inventory as clothing and started looking at it as social currency. This led him to a profound psychological realization, signaling theory. Humans are tribal creatures. We don't buy luxury or niche items just for their utility. We buy them to signal our status and our group affiliation to others. Alex realized that his customers didn't just want a vintage jacket. They wanted the world to know they had the taste to find that jacket. So, he stopped selling individual items and started selling a lifestyle. He began packaging orders with branded stickers, handwritten notes, and members only access cards for future drops. He created an artificial velvet rope around his business. By doing this, he triggered the endowment effect. When customers felt like they were part of an exclusive club, they valued the products more highly simply because they belonged to them. They became brand evangelists, defending his higher prices because it validated their own investment. But while his bank account was growing, his mental state was fracturing. This is the dark side of early success that few talk about: cognitive dissonance. By day, Alex was a high school student asking permission to use the restroom. By night, he was a CEO negotiating logistics with international shippers. His brain was constantly switching between two incompatible realities. He felt isolated. His friends were stressing about prom dates and algebra tests. Alex was stressing about customer acquisition costs and supply chain bottlenecks. He couldn't relate to them, and they couldn't comprehend his world. This isolation breeds a specific type of anxiety known as founder's blues. The brain craves social connection, but success, especially early outlier success, creates distance. He began to doubt himself. Was he missing out on his childhood? Was the money worth the lonely Friday nights spent packing boxes? He was experiencing the hedonic treadmill. The dopamine hit from making a $1,000 sale had faded. It now took a $5,000 day to feel the same excitement that a $100 day used to provide. He realized that money, on its own, is a terrible motivator for long-term endurance. If he was going to survive the pressure, he needed a purpose bigger than profit. He had to shift his dopamine source from getting money to solving problems. He had to fall in love with the game, not the score. This mental shift is what separates the flash-in-the-pan hustlers from the career entrepreneurs. One burns out when the money gets boring or the stress gets too high. The other thrives on the complexity of the challenge itself. Alex decided he wasn't just building a store anymore. He was building a legacy. Today, Alex is no longer a teenager working out of a garage, but the empire he built stands as a testament to the fact that resourcefulness beats resources every single time. You might be thinking, that was 2014. Instagram was easy. The market wasn't saturated. This is a dangerous lie you tell yourself to justify an action. The tools change, but human psychology remains permanent. In 2014, the opportunity was vintage clothes on Instagram. Today, the opportunity is digital products on TikTok, specialized services using AI, or hyper-niche communities on Discord. The vehicle is different, but the fuel is the same. In fact, the barrier to entry is lower today than it was for Alex. He had to physically ship boxes. You can build a digital empire without ever touching a roll of packing tape. But there is a catch. Because it is easier to start, there is more noise. To win in today's economy, you have to apply Alex's psychological playbook with surgical precision. You cannot just try things. You must engineer them. Here are the 3 specific psychological levers you need to pull right now to replicate this level of growth. Action step 1. The sniper strategy. Stop trying to start a business. That is too vague. Alex didn't open a department store. He bought one specific type of inventory. Pick one micro niche where you can be the absolute authority. Do not sell fitness equipment. Sell recovery tools for marathon runners over 40. Do not sell consulting. Sell email marketing automation for dental clinics. When you narrow your focus, you eliminate competition. You become the only logical choice for a specific group of people. Action step 2. Narrative arbitrage. Stop competing on price. Start competing on story. If you are selling a generic product, you are a commodity. If you wrap that product in a narrative, you are a brand. Look at what you are offering. Is it just a PDF guide? Or is it the blueprint to recovering 10 hours of your week? Is it just a coffee mug? Or is it the morning ritual for high performers? Value is not intrinsic. It is assigned by the observer. You control the lens through which they see your product. Action step 3. The 100% reinvestment rule. This is the hardest step. Commit to the Alex rule. For the first $10,000 of profit, you take $0 out of the business. Nothing for shoes. Nothing for drinks. Nothing for a new phone. Every single dollar must be treated as a soldier. You send that soldier out to capture more territory, better software, better skills, better inventory. If you eat your seed corn, you will never have a harvest. Most people stay poor because they consume their capital before it has a chance to compound. You must starve your lifestyle to feed your ambition. We often look at stories like Alex's and try to find the secret sauce. We look for the specific supplier he used or the specific hashtag strategy he exploited. But that is a distraction. If you focus on the tactics, you miss the strategy. If you focus on the strategy, You missed the psychology. The true secret of the 13-year-old tycoon wasn't that he knew how to sell clothes. It was that he realized he didn't need permission to start. Most of us spend our lives waiting for a green light. We wait for a degree. We wait for a promotion. We wait for the economy to improve. We wait for someone to tap us on the shoulder and say, "Okay, you are ready now." Alex didn't wait. He looked at a pile of unwanted clothes and decided to give them value. He looked at his empty bank account and decided to fill it. This is the ultimate psychological shift, internal locus of control. It is the deep, unshakable belief that you control your outcome, not luck, not the government, and not your circumstances. That $1,000 could have easily vanished into a summer of video games and fast food. It would be gone today, a distant memory of a fun childhood. Instead, it became the seed of a life defined by freedom. You are holding your own version of that $1,000 right now. Maybe it is money. Maybe it is time. Maybe it is a unique skill you are afraid to share. You have a choice. You can consume it, or you can compound it. You can remain a spectator in the economy, paying the salaries of those who dared to build, or you can step into the arena. The market doesn't care about your age. It doesn't care about your background. It only cares about the value you bring to the table. So, here is your challenge for today. I don't want you to just click off this video and watch the next recommended clip. I want you to make a declaration. If you are ready to stop consuming and start creating, I want you to leave a specific comment below. Write the word build, just that one word. Let it be a contract with yourself that starting today, you are no longer just a customer. You are a founder in training. If you want to decode more of the hidden psychology behind wealth and human behavior, hit that subscribe button. We don't teach you how to get rich quick here. We teach you how to think rich forever. Class dismissed. Go build your empire.